All right. We are going to finish up leveraging sourcing strategies from yesterday. And we went through the whole stakeholder analysis, all that good stuff, steering committees, their opportunity assessment process. Now, I'll pick up with that. So, category strategies start with correctly evaluating the category. We'll get into the Kralik matrix in a minute here. But this is basically it. You got a quadrant, business impact. Think of this as spend, and supply risk, market complexity. Think of this as the degree to which the industry is moving towards a monopoly. So this is a monopoly over here, and this is a bunch of firms over here. This is what we covered yesterday, the opportunity assessment steps. Spend analysis, cost price analysis, risk analysis, market analysis, and requirements analysis. So use them to provide guidance when trying to determine category or commodity characteristics here in the Kralik matrix. So you do run this first, and then you do this. So if we look at the Kralik matrix, Peter Kralik came up with this idea in the early 1980s. He was a professor at some business school, got published in the Harvard Business Review, and people have been ripping it off ever since. You'll see all kinds of people. They'll change the axes or they'll change the names. It's like it's still a Kralik matrix, man. But the whole idea is, where do you want to spend your time? Because you can't spend your time, same amount of time on every supplier or every commodity. So this is your tendency towards monopoly. So these are monopolistic industries down here. And these are very not complex with a lot of suppliers. And this is spend. So this is a lot of suppliers with a low spend. What you try to do is get standard specifications, substitutes are readily available, very competitive market. This is things like office supplies, MRO supplies that we use in the plant, that kind of stuff, fasteners. Up here, the spend is much higher, but there's a lot of suppliers and you're trying to use a standard specification. Substitutes are also still possible. This is like when we buy tires and wheels. That's a classic leverage. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars on tires and wheels, but it's a standard spec. It's not our spec, and you can substitute very easily. So here you want to exploit purchasing power and focus on cost. Then over here at the strategic or critical, these are the high spend guys that are, only a few companies in the industry. This is Cummins, transmissions, most of our powertrain parts, axles. They're expensive, and there's not a lot of players in the industry. So diversify, balance, exploit, ensure continuous availability at the lowest total cost of ownership. And then bottleneck, there's only a few suppliers in the industry, but the spend is low. These could be things like computer chips that we're having problems getting. Compared to engines, it's not a big spend, but you got to have them. These guys are like a pain in the neck. You want to ensure supply availability in the short term and get engineering to eliminate them in the long term, if possible, because you just don't have to deal with a bunch of these guys. So that's the Kralik matrix. Here's your tools. So for leverage, spend aggregation, price analysis, and then process efficiency down here in tactical, bottleneck value analysis, look at the cost drivers and cost management. And then up here, collaboration and innovation, strategic alliances, TCO, that type of thing. So those are your Kralik matrices. So best price evaluation. Prices need to be comparable on the important attributes. You'll see this when you send out an RFP, and not so much with an RFQ because it's basically RFQ is build to print, but especially with an RFP, each supplier will come back with a little bit different package because they don't want to be compared. So when evaluating on price, suppliers under consideration need to have essentially equal and acceptable quality, meet specs, flexible and represent about the same level of risk, and treat shipping costs in the same manner. And a lot of times, if you really want to lock them down, you can send a spreadsheet you want them to fill out for their RFP. Volume concentration, pull spending together to increase leverage. We talked about this before. Hospitals, school districts will often do this. Pool spend across divisions. This is what we do here, Kenworth and Peterbilt. Sometimes DOF. Consolidate the number of suppliers, combine volumes from different groups, and redistribute volume among suppliers and optimize the supplier base. So this is your classic economics graph here. At 30, the price is going to be 60, but at 35, the price is going to be 50 because you've shifted the supply down. You've increased supply, basically. Global sourcing is a way to create greater competition, which can provide more leverage, but you really got to look at it from a total cost of ownership analysis because freight costs and other costs can really be expensive. And you also have a risk of stock out is higher. Product specification improvement. So improving designs and loosening tolerances, that's basically what DFMA does, a design for manufacturability and assembly. Sorry. Where possible, allow more suppliers to complete for business at a lower cost. It's just making the design more efficient, fewer parts, that type of thing. Joint process improvement. So you would do this with your strategic suppliers. Improve the supply chain from end to end, business flow and collaboration, joint processes, and integrating logistics. And then you've got relationship restructuring, rethinking how you do business with a given supplier. This usually happens if the supplier has a problem. Can we outsource activities to the supplier? What would we get? Would we get a better contract, for terms? Risks were shifted, and PACCAR doesn't like shifting risks onto them. They want to shift it onto the supply base. Volume guarantees were granted. We're not going to do that either. But they're all things you can look at. Extending the term of the contract, we can do that. What else could PACCAR do that the supplier would want? Product re-engineering, make it easier for them to build. Policies and procedures, new supplier development, make a supplier approach. New business for another division of the supplier. Most what these guys want is more business. Demand management process where the supply management works with internal stakeholders to reduce the use of products or services. May be possible to redesign products or change processes to eliminate the purchase or reduce the amount needed. This is really kind of directed at indirect buying. Factors prioritizing decision making. So you got all these ideas, which ones to start working on first. Compliance for sourcing strategies to be effective is important. Internal customers agree to the changes. This goes with our sourcing and getting engineering and materials to agree to the choice of the source and quality. Quality sourcing strategies should ensure that any changes do not affect product or service quality. And we're pretty good about looking at that. Savings, we're very good about looking at the savings. This is usually why we switch. But just because you get a big savings doesn't mean it's easy to implement. And savings must be evaluated from a total cost perspective. So if you're lengthening the supply chain by going to Asia, you're going to increase transportation costs. That's got to be accounted for. And outsourcing services, this is indirect purchasing to low-cost country at cheaper labor rates. So people are outsourcing things like accounts payable, expense reporting. They're going to India, but it can create numerous communication issues. India is not so bad, but Vietnam, China, they can be pretty tough. Organizational capacity, some of the types of issues companies must address. So lack of spend visibility and real-time data, that's a big problem here at PACCAR. Decentralized organization structure, we don't have that issue. Paper-based transactions and inconsistent procurement practices, not PACCAR so much, but it's out there. Unaligned organization incentive structure. Sometimes you run into that. And then you got the organizational culture. So organization with a highly decentralized culture will have difficulty implementing a centralized procurement policy. Yeah, that makes sense. Central-led strategy with local execution and integration may be a better solution. That's kind of what we do here, is more center-led, hybrid kind of stuff. So constraints, internal and external, things like existing contracts, exclusive agreements, incumbent suppliers who control designs, lack of viable alternatives. We run into that a lot. Lack of consistent standards, possible disruption of critical business operation. Additional constraints for sourcing from low-cost countries or best-cost countries. Technical standards, gaps in technical capabilities, and exporting, importing policies. Alignment to organizational goals. So supply management needs to add value to the buying organization. To do this, you got to be aligned with the organization's overall goals. For example, if the company's mission is to produce high quality product, then procurement can't purchase the cheapest components possible at the expense of quality. So here's a sourcing prioritization chart. Another one, kind of like the Kralik matrix. So savings potential from low to high, and ease of implementation from easy to difficult. So these are the small quick hits, small savings, but very easy to implement. These are small savings, but very difficult to implement. This is trying to do directed tier 2 buying and changing. It's just not worth it. It's just a hassle. You get very little savings from it. Low hanging fruit, easy implementation, big savings potential, and then long-term project. All right. Which of the following should be the first step for the assessment team to attain a successful spend analysis result? Well, anybody got a guess? I'm thinking you could eliminate A and D, and then it would come down to B or C. I just, from what the slides that they'd had and the way they covered it, I would go with B, but let's see. D, no, it's the wrong question. Yeah, it's B. First thing you should focus on is identify and collect the most accurate data. All right. There are 5 questions out there, numbers 6 through 10. Go ahead and jump on those and raise your hand when we get done. Otherwise, we'll go over at 2:21 or so. And then there's a case study if you want to do it on your own. Answers are on here. All right, well, let's go over some answers here. Okay, number 6 is Bravo. How is the product or service used or planned to be used? Question that addresses the characteristics of the item. 7 is Delta. This component is in the leverage category, and the best way to get price in this category is to aggregate volume and work one supplier against the other. 8 is Bravo. This semiconductor would fall in the bottleneck category. And you want to ensure supply in the short term and eliminate in the long term. 9 is Alpha. Joint process improvement can help work on the tolerance stack up throughout the supply chain. And 10 is Bravo. Aurora has only resources for one project, and Project B gives 2/3 of the savings in less than half the time. Any questions? All right, tomorrow, what are we doing? Oh, we're just doing questions tomorrow. All right, talk to you guys later.
Thanks,
you.
Rick. Thank you.